You are listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, Tom Edwards, and James Jones. Back together, reunited. So after a crazy show last Tuesday that felt more like a live radio news program than a podcast designed to be relevant for a whole week, we're back safe in the knowledge that the money-grabbing billionaires who attempted to steal football from us all have been well and truly put back in their box by the power of the people. I, for one, hope this momentum carries on and we soon see majority fan ownership models across England like those in Germany. But let's take it one step at a time for now, as David Gold and David Sullivan no doubt take a breather from being the most hated owners in England, as fans of Arsenal and Man United continue to protest against their billionaire backers. God knows how scared Daniel Levy must have been seeing three blokes with a trumpet and that fella who always cries on Tottenham's YouTube after West Ham beat them whining outside their shiny new stadium as well. The stadium they probably won't be able to afford the debt repayments for now the Super League has collapsed. Shame. But back to West Ham, whose European dream is starting to develop cracks. It's not all that good. We lost, of course, 1-0 at home to Chelsea. Of course, it was Timo Werner, hasn't scored a goal in 7 games. We did look a little bit flat, but more importantly than that, whether West Ham are going to get the Champions League or not, James Jones and Tom Edwards are back with me. We've all had a week off over the last 3 weeks. Different reasons, but well-deserved rests, no doubt. But I'm glad we're back together, boys. Shame about the circumstances. It's been quite buoyant this season, but the first defeat to talk of for a while. James, will throw to you first, of course. Wonderful to have Tom back, mate. Of course, he was out protesting, getting all up and close and personal with Peter Cech last week, wasn't he? We did, of course, miss him, but for once, we've got praise to heap on Tom for his part in what was a great day and a great week for football in the end.
Yeah, no, Tom, I want to personally thank you, mate, for saving football single-handedly.
I'll take it.
A real strong effort, mate. And at first, I must admit, last week when you put in the WhatsApp group, guys, I've got to go and protest. I was like, what is he on about? What is he protesting against? And then I realised it was for such a noble cause when it comes to saving football that I thought, no, do you know what? We'll let him go. And he came back with the goods, mate. Woke up Wednesday morning, feeling fresh as a daisy, mate. Knowing that, you know, we might still see West Ham playing the Champions League. If not next season, definitely the season after we win the Premier League.
So, football's very own Che Guevara, man of the people, leader of the revolution. How does it feel to be such an important figure? Not that you weren't before, of course, given your prominent role on the We Are West Ham podcast, but now not only are you an inspiration to West Ham fans everywhere, you're now just an icon for football fans across the land and perhaps across the world.
Listen, mate, when you got the weight of 4 billion people's biggest hobby in your shoulders, you take it upon yourself to make a stand. And look, the phone's been blowing off. Dad's got security on the house right now. It's getting a bit crazy. It's all come on top. But no, in seriousness, it was good to be there. And it sounds a weird one, but a lot of my mates are Chelsea mates. I come from Southwest London. A lot of them are Chelsea mates. Part of growing up and getting on with him so well was being my banter I've had back and forth about football and playing them and moving that way and having that sort of banter. So to see them lose their club, even though I absolutely hate them and I wouldn't mind if they tailed off, I couldn't imagine it when I was leading up to the Chelsea game thinking that's the last time we'll ever play them, sort of thing. And it didn't sit right with me, and the whole thing didn't sit right with me, as it didn't sit right with everyone. By the way, great podcast last week. Absolutely love listening back to it. And what you guys said was spot on. It really is the people's game, and it really is something that really hit hard for every football fan across the country. And I was lucky enough to be in the area and close enough, and with nothing to do that evening, and no kid to look after, and no Barnet to look after for Will. So I thought I had to go, and I'm very happy I did. Very happy I did. But it wasn't just that. It was the social media presence. It was everything that they got the right outcome in the end. And fingers crossed that they don't try and do something else stupid in the near future. But what a day, and what a day for football. And fingers crossed it's only the start, like you said, and certain things come in which mean that the fans do get a grasp of the game again, not the way we've seen in the last few years.
Well, massive props, mate. Massive props. Like I say, massive respect from from me and Jonesy. We made that clear last week, and Chidgey, who come on the Chelsea fan cast, was impressed as well, as we all were. It was bigger than football rivalries, and I was glad to see we had a We Are West Ham representative there. Tom, though, you must answer me straight, mate. Which is more famous at the moment, do you think? Your sign or you? Because I feel like that's got a lot more traction in the mainstream media than your face has.
Sadly, is that, and also my mate holding it, because I was obviously shirking responsibility, giving it on to someone else, and now he's the face of GQ, one of the ugliest geezers in Europe, and he's the face of GQ in Australia. So I'll give it to him, and I'll give it to the sign. It's sadly, but that sign is going in the National Football History Museum. So
yeah, what did it read again? What did it say?
It said, "Football belongs to us, not you."
Nice one. And there's some very specific capitalization and bold and underlining, wasn't there? I like it. Was a work of art, Thomas. It really was.
It's his missus, to be fair to him. It's the guy holding its missus. So she can also take
Well, you didn't even make it yourself.
No, of course not. Do you think I've got
piggybacking off everyone else's success?
Literally, this illusion's come shattering down, isn't it? We thought Tom had gone out there, a martyr for the cause, or off his own back, and all he's doing, he's just a champagne socialist, a champagne football socialist.
Just delegating, mate. Just delegating.
Yeah, exactly that. Well, look, Tom, great to have you back, mate, and great to be back with you two lads as well. Lads, what we'll do the housekeeping. Everyone know what's coming up on the show, but I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Ben, who got in touch on Twitter this week, at Strike Warp on Twitter. He just tagged us to let us know, at We Are West Ham, after last week, football has really piqued my interest. 20 years have passed since I followed the league at all, but I felt strongly against the European Super League nonetheless. I searched my old team, which is West Ham, found your show. Great work, and I really enjoyed it. Really nice words from Ben. We, of course, thanked him for that and said, hope he subscribed to the podcast. He said it's the first thing he did. So Ben's had 20 years away from football. It's glad to have him back, certainly in the West Ham fold. And it was really nice for him to get in touch. One of those things that, one of the many things when we hear from the We Are West Ham listeners that put smiles on our faces. And that one certainly made me grin this week. So I thought I'd give a quick shout out to Ben at the beginning of the show. Right, let's have a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, lads, before I let everyone know what is coming up. It's another brilliant one tonight. Three We Are West Ham debutantes on the show tonight. First time guests, some really big names. So that's something to look forward to. But bit of housekeeping first of all. Do follow us on Twitter, like Ben has, at @WeAre_West Ham. Feel free to get in touch. Positive or negative, we don't mind. It's just great to hear from you. You can follow us and subscribe to us on YouTube as well, where you can watch these entire shows in full. If you don't fancy just listening, you can also watch the individual segments as individual videos if you like some more than others. So go down to the description to this podcast where you can find the link to our YouTube. James Jones posts all our videos on our Twitter as well. So if you're unsure, head on over there at @WeAre_West Ham. You'll find links to our YouTube as well. We're on Instagram as well. We Are West Ham Pod on Instagram. You can buy us a beer and support the podcast as well at buymeacoffee.com/wearewestham. Just want to say thanks so much to Steve Berry and Dave White, who've supported the podcast this week. Said some nice words as well. Thanks again, of course, to Isaac, Lisa, and all the rest of you who've supported it already. But Dave said, love the podcast and wanted to say a little thanks. Steve Berry chipped in with, I listened every week since the Love Sport radio days. I love the opinion and the bants and the quizzes. So it's really nice to hear from those two guys. Thanks a lot for supporting the pod. But James, Dave actually bought 2 beers. And as it was the week that it was just me and you, Jonesy, I'd say it's safe to say that those 2 pints that Dave's bought us were just meant for me and you, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you'd think so. I'm just wondering, given that Tom's now claimed the title of football saviour, I wonder whether we should sort of maybe donate half a pint to Tom as a thank you.
Yeah,
that's all I need.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, look, I mean, Dave bought 2 pints over at buymeacoffee.com/wearewestham, and Steve bought us 1 as well, which is great news. So it's 3 from those guys in total. So we can they can stretch to 1 each. I just wasn't sure whether it was reasonable, especially as Isaac came on earlier in the season when he chipped in a pint for the podcast and made it abundantly clear that it was to be split between me and you, Jonesy, wasn't it? Absolutely under no circumstances, you said, was it to go to Tom? So I think sometimes it's fair to assume those rules apply if he's not on the podcast.
Yeah, definitely. But then, I think he deserves a drop of beer at some point this season. So maybe if we give him a quarter of a pint each,
That's all I need,
that leaves him with a cheeky half after work one night.
Yeah, and you know exactly, Tom's alluded to there. You know what he's like as well. He only needs one, and then he's anybody. So, but look, just a little reminder on that. If you haven't new to the podcast or you've forgotten, it's just that any money that we get through that is just goes towards. There's no subscription or anything like that. Anyone who doesn't chip in isn't getting any more or less than any of the rest of you. It's just a little something. A few people have expressed interest to do it before, to say thanks, show their appreciation, and it just goes towards equipment. Guests, sometimes we have to pay little fees to the guests we have on. We've done some brilliant giveaways this season, shirts and all that sort of thing. So it just helps keeping the podcast going as good as we can. And if there's any spare for the end of season, we might chip in for Tom, as he is known to be a bit shy when it comes up to going as the boss. So thanks everyone to you guys who've done that already. What's coming up on the show tonight, James? I'm going to get feeling from you and Tom, of course, just a bit of an updated feeling on the European Super League. Now it's all collapsed, before we hopefully leave that one in the past for the time being. David Moyes and Lucas Fabianski have won some awards, which is impressive stuff from both of them. We'll have some detailed reaction to that defeat to Chelsea at the weekend. We'll have Mark Halsey, former Premier League referee, first time appearance on the We Are West Ham podcast, to break down that Fabian Balbuena farcical decision, the handball that wasn't from Cesar Azpilicueta that looked to deny us a goal. Mark Halsey will be on to tell us all about that and give his reaction to the news that Balbuena red card was overturned today. So it'll be brilliant to hear from Mark, who me and Tom spoke to earlier today. The Betway charity bets are back. No wins last week, unfortunately. We were close, but no cigar. Still reeling, of course, from James Jones's £2,000 win only a couple of weeks ago. So not too sad on that front. We'll make our Burnley selections ahead of that game at Turf Moor on Monday night, before speaking to Simon from the Turfcast podcast about their great win against Wolves, Chris Wood, the goal machine, and whether or not Wood would be a good fit at West Ham or not next season, because we are desperate for a striker. Name That Game is finally back. I am back in the Quizmasters hot seat as James Jones hopes the break from the quiz, the 3-week break from the quiz, has given him a little bit of extra energy back in his legs, and he can surge from the bottom of the table and try and catch Tom, who's miles out in front on 43 points. James at the bottom on 36. Then we've got another new guest, as I've mentioned already, for the West Ham women, Michelle, who's a season ticket holder for the West Ham women, unable to go like so many of us this season. A big draw for the girls against Everton in between last week's podcast and this one. Surely they're safe now. It's not mathematically certain yet, lads, but it looks to be as sure as it can be. Just need another precious point against Aston Villa next up, and then another season of WSL football for the girls, and then we'll say goodbye, as we always do, with a brief Fantasy Premier League update and a little bit more housekeeping, no doubt, to wrap things up with. But lads, look, let's get straight into it. Loads to cover tonight, really exciting one. I just want to get your feelings first. Tom, I'll go to you. The European Super League, it's all collapsed. It collapsed as soon as it started. Last week was a crazy show, as you've alluded to already. Me and James were updating things. It was all breaking down as the show was going on. What do you make of it now? The dust has settled somewhat.
I think still the same emotions, to be honest. That less anger involved, because ultimately clubs have listened to the fans, but they haven't listened out of anything bar pure greed. If even 20% of people were behind it, they'd still be backing it in trying to get it through. So a little bit less anger because it's now not imminent and clubs aren't releasing statements by the minute saying they're doing this mid-season, particularly for us, when the 1 year we're living the dream and potentially going to achieve something special, it comes out and derails that and sort of spits on everything that we've done and Leicester have done it and all the other clubs who've achieved something special in their own leagues respectively, where these 12 leagues, 12 other clubs come from. In happiness and pride in the way fans across the world came together, but it also for me, the whole season's felt a little bit. It sort of changed the dynamic of the way everything feels this year. It all feels a little bit more hollow, and I don't think that's subsided yet. And I hope it does, because we've had a brilliant season, and I want to enjoy it and look back at it for enjoying West Ham's own success and what we've been able to do, as opposed to looking back at this season is the season where 12 clubs and 12 greedy men tried to take the game from beneath the people's feet. So I think time will tell, but hopefully that's the last we hear of it. And hopefully overriding thing is that these clubs get punished, because to see Chelsea in a Champions League semi-final, go 3 points clear in top four, and have an FA Cup final on the horizon just doesn't sit right with me. Just how can a club have everything that they'd ever want still after everything that's happened? And as long as they get punished, I'll be a happy man. But until then, I think I'll still have relatively same emotions.
Yeah, that's the bit, isn't it? The bit that sat uncomfortably with me was Alexander Seferin, the UEFA president, coming out and going, "Oh, welcome back to the fold." Like, oh, thank God I know. I agree with him when he said people make mistakes. That's right. But when people make mistakes, they get punished for it. And just say, "Oh, welcome back to the fold." He's obviously desperate to return to the status quo. Will still be wanting to roll out his ridiculously extended Champions League format, no doubt, and just have everything hush hush again and go back to everything which was very cushy and very nice for him and for all the organisations. Thanks very much, but no, not for me. Not for me. I don't want to see that at all. I'm totally with you, Tom. Jonesy, your reaction a week on after that crazy podcast we did last Tuesday night?
I mean, it's kind of subsided so much that I've barely given it a second thought over the last couple of days. But the only thing I'm really keen to see now is the punishment, as Tom said. How do these clubs get punished? What's the right way of punishing these clubs for making the so-called mistake that they've made? I don't agree with the argument that it's not fair on the fans. It's like, well, it wasn't fair on Wigan fans when they were docked 12 points last year. Portsmouth, exactly. Bolton, Borough. So many clubs have had points deducted because of the actions of their owners, and that's written in the rule book that if your owners get your club put into administration, you're docked 12 points at least. So why are we now suddenly thinking of the fans of these top six clubs? Why do they care about these fans? Okay, these fans have protested against this very thing happening, but it's still the clubs. So I don't know how they go about it. I'll be very surprised if it's a points deduction. A points deduction would be nice, because it would give us a huge chance of finishing the top four. But then at the same time, or top two, we might even win it. If that did happen and we mathematically didn't finish in the top four, but then a points deduction would allow it, it would feel a little bit. I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't complain, but it would feel a little bit like, well, we didn't achieve it, but we did, kind of thing. But I'll take it all day long. But I'm interested to see what happens. But other than that, as Tom said, just put it behind us now. Just hope that they don't come back with another crazy idea in a few years' time. That new Champions League format needs a bit of work, because it's just ridiculous.
Or scrapping, yeah.
Yeah, I mean the whole giving 2 extra places to teams that have previously done well in the competition but had a poor season in the league just seems a little bit.
That stinks. It's the same, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very Super League-ish. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But hopefully this is a good thing for football long term, a good thing for fans. Gives us a chance to grab a little bit more power back, and looking forward to seeing what happens next.
I just hope we do, though, mate. That's what makes me nervous, and I'm not digging you out, but I know you're saying, "Oh yeah, I've sort of forgotten about it." That's what I'm scared of. That apathy among football fans just creeps back in, and everyone just gets used to, "Oh, who we got this weekend? Oh, Chelsea, Burnley, is it? Oh, that'd be good. Yeah, what team are we going to play? Blah blah blah." As soon as you get caught up in the minutiae again, and what's Gary Neville bantered Jamie Carragher about on Sky Sports this week? What's Jim White said? That's really annoyed West Ham fans. As soon as you get back into that, the bigger picture's lost, and then you're just like lambs to the slaughter again, aren't you? Waiting for the next plot, which will be more cute, no doubt, and thought out properly. And and all of a sudden fan protests and all that aren't going to be good enough because it's far more watertight than the first one, Tom, don't you think?
I disagree to an extent. I disagree to an extent. I mean, you can still have all of that stuff about surrounding football that we all love and get involved in, whether that's the banter, whether that's, listening to Carragher and Neville, bite each other's necks off every Monday night, moaning about tactics or whatever they do. But then still be angry and want actual, real, proper change within the sport in favour of the fans. And the reason why I hadn't really thought about it the last couple of days is because it consumed me for so much of last week that I kind of had to take a step back from it all and go, look, there's more important things going on, i.e. West Ham's fight for the top four, big game on Saturday against Chelsea. So I kind of had to pull myself back from it because it was consuming every minute of every day. And obviously I've got a full-time job and a little boy to look after. It was like on my phone constantly, what's the latest thing? So, but I mean, I can see where you're coming from, but we can have it both ways.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people can remain angry and demand change, but then also still continue to enjoy parts of the game that they've always enjoyed and always love, and and that's why they follow the sport.
Come on, James. I don't react well to measured logic like that. All he's saying, though, Tom, I think is all he's saying is the fact that me and you have got no wives and no children and just no responsibilities at all. We can afford. We can afford to be much more angry and take up loads of our time because we've got nothing going on in our lives. That's all I heard then.
Mate.
You both just be angry and crack on, and I'll worry about all the proper things that go on in life.
I'll be over here being a grown up.
There's what I do want to say though. Even today, I'm on a group chat with 11 blokes, 9 Chelsea fans. I stood with them last week when only four of them came. The rest didn't. I stood up for their club when the rest didn't. Seeing all day this nervous for the Champions League, nervous for that, just put a sock in it. You didn't try and fight for your club. Very few people did. And I'm sat here with West Ham. If we had our 5 players fit, who we don't have, we'd be in the top 4. We'd have beaten Newcastle. We'd have got a result against Chelsea, and we'd be in a very solid position to get top 4. We've had bad luck. You've been pulled out by your owners, fine, yes. But we've had bad luck. We had those injuries. We'd be safe. And ultimately, they're now bigging themselves up, and they've got a CL semi-final tonight. They've got their FA Cup final coming on, and they're probably secure for top 4. And I agree with Jonesy. We should all enjoy the other things. I do just think that the delaying of this punishment is hurting. It's tough. That result was very tough to take against them the other day, particularly with the red card, particularly with all that went on in that game. It was just hard to take. And I'm with Jonesy. I'm enjoying every other bit of football. I still am, and I won't lie about that. I'm still enjoying the banter. I'm still watching the videos and the individual highlights and all that stuff. But I just struggle to see my mates so buoyant and upbeat about their club, Chelsea, who tried to ruin everything that football stands for it. And I think the football fans who aren't part of those 12 clubs need something to happen now, really.
Exactly, mate. You're totally right. And all these things we all take for granted that people have got so quickly got back to, like you were mentioning, their mates who didn't go to the protest and all that. Ultimately, just being passive participants won't be good enough next time round. Next time, the inevitable next plot comes around. Stan Kroenke at Arsenal came out today. Just released a statement this evening. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not selling. Protest all you like. Spotify billionaire, you can go and poke it. I'm not going anywhere. Thanks very much. Exactly, Tom. It's the passivity among fans that these people prey on, because it's the ones that just loyally, blindly follow their clubs and don't make any noise, etc., etc. When times get tough, or when things look like they're putting football at risk, then it spells trouble. But look, that's enough of that, lads. The story will, of course, rumble on, and we'll keep across it, particularly with if and how it affects West Ham United. But James, some good news on the individual front. The London Football Awards, which I believe are going on as we're recording, but some big wins for some West Ham stars.
Yeah, well, obviously, because we're absolutely massive. David Moyes has won London's Manager of the Year, which is obvious. Tottenham and Chelsea didn't have their managers in the fold because obviously they've changed their managers this season. So it was a reduced list of nominees, but Moyes was the runaway winner, unsurprisingly. And Fabianski got London goalkeeper of the year as well, which again is probably unsurprising. Other than, I think we were saying before we start recording, Guaita at Palace is a pretty nifty keeper. But other than that, probably no one really going to give Fabianski a run for his money. So, two awards. Just got to go and clean up at the Premier League awards at the end of the season, which I'm sure David Moyes will be one of the front runners for manager of the year, definitely.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, and I think it's easy for us to say, obviously it was going to go to those two. But Tom, I think it is worth making a big deal of this, because if you'd said that this time last season, oh, by the way, West Ham are going to win 2 awards at the London Football Awards, manager and goalkeeper of the year, you'd have gone, what the hell? So, although other teams haven't done so well, West Ham are still 5th in the Premier League. Playing really well. The manager's done miracles, and we were only saying the last couple of weeks, Fabianski obviously wasn't great against Newcastle, but before that, been pretty much flawless all season. So we should make a big deal of this, shouldn't we?
Yeah, we should always be proud, especially when we're now influencing. The last time we were even in amongst these awards was 15-16 when Payet won London Player of the Year. So it's nice to be successful and have players in the ranks and managers who are getting recognised outside of just our little bubble of West Ham fans. And David Moyes absolutely deserves it. For me, he is manager of the year. And no matter what happens, say if we stay in the top 6 particularly, he is manager of the year. He's really taken us to new levels that none of us thought we were even capable of with the squad at our disposal. Fabianski, brilliant keeper. He's probably in my life, him and Rob Green are the standout keepers I've seen us have. And one mistake doesn't make it for the man. And he's a top bloke. And I think we saw how much we missed him when we didn't have him to start the season. I think that cost us a few points. And he's just been brilliant for us. And I'm very happy that he's got some kind of recognition, particularly so soon after the Newcastle thing, because that seemed to hit him very hard with that tweet and all that. So good on him and good on David Moyes.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Kudos to both of those guys. Massive congratulations from us here at We Are West Ham. Chelsea reaction then, boys. The first thing, the only thing to talk about, first of all, really fortunate to have Mark Halsey, former Premier League ref, on with us, and you'll hear that interview in full in part 2. Fabian Balbuena getting sent off for kicking a football. It's beyond West Ham and losing to Chelsea. And I'm not for a minute, I want to make this clear, I'm not suggesting for a minute that sending off cost us the game. It cost us a chance to give ourselves a chance of nicking a point, perhaps. I'm not saying we would. So anyone who's thinking of getting on at me on Twitter or just anywhere going, well, we wouldn't have won, so it doesn't matter. It does matter. It matters more than just that one game, because what the hell is the point of watching football anymore if he literally kicked the ball? And this isn't my West Ham hat on. I've hated watching football a lot this season because of the way so many of the decisions are going and the way VAR is being implemented. What else do you say, really? I mean, James, you're laughing your head off. If you actually, you know what, I might go to Tom, because when I'm feeling as angry as this, I don't like it when you try and pacify me and say, "Oh, it's not as bad as you make out, mate." I don't know. I don't need it. So I might go to Tom.
I'm not going to say that.
Up.
I'm not going to say that, mate. I completely agree with you. I was in the pub watching it, which was a great experience, by the way. I've missed that. I really, really missed that, by the way. Being in the pub watching football, but it was full of West Ham fans, and I've never seen, and obviously unless you're in the stadium, baffled by the decision, so many blokes, there's people on their knees in the pub with their heads in their hands going, I cannot believe what I've just seen there. I genuinely cannot believe it. And I still look back at it now and just go, how the hell have two professional referees, Premier League referees, have had a chance to look at that over and over again and came to the complete opposite decision as the rest of the country? When you've got ex-Premier League footballers tweeting going, I cannot believe I've seen that. When you've got current Premier League footballers tweeting, can't believe I've just seen that. It was that obvious, and still on the day, 2 men watched it over and over again and still came to the decision as a red card. It's just absolutely baffling. And it kind of almost underlined the week that we'd had. Obviously, at the beginning of the week, we thought we'd lost football to 6 billionaires or 12 billionaires in the Super League. And then at the end of the week, you get a decision like that where you think, well, what is the point of us even bothering when you get decisions like that? And it almost underlined the week that we'd had as fans. But thankfully, in the end, common sense prevailed. But I saw a stat just before we come on. Apparently, 5 of our last 8 Premier League red cards have been rescinded.
What's the point?
And two of those in this season were given by VAR. They were watched over by the referee on the side of the pitch and then eventually overturned days later.
That's the most ridiculous thing, isn't it?
It's
VAR is supposed to be
unforgivable.
those appeals there live. It's supposed to be the blokes sitting around the room live.
It's supposed to stop red cards being given incorrectly and then ended up being rescinded.
Exactly.
What's happened twice throughout the season is exactly what is not supposed to happen with VAR.
Lads, I don't know if 15-16 counts as those 7, but if the 5 out of 7 sounds that probably 15-16 was before that, how many of those were rescinded as well in 15-16, the Kiyate one and all them against
Palace? I think it involves those.
Good. Yeah, I was going to say, because then that would just be ridiculous.
Yeah.
But VAR, like you said, it's supposed to be there to do the reviewing straight away, isn't it? So before someone would get sent off during the game, there was nothing anyone could do about it before VAR. And then on a Monday, the team would appeal. So people would sit around and watch the videos. Professionals would sit down and watch the videos and then say that should or shouldn't have been a yellow card. VAR is supposed to be that Monday morning meeting brought forward to 30 seconds after the incident has happened. Exactly what you said. So you don't need it anymore. What the hell is going on? What is going on? Honestly, the football has been rubbish this season. I know West Ham have been good, but football has been rubbish. The amount of games where, I know some people are, I'm not a big one for sitting down on a Saturday and not getting off the sofa until Sunday night when all the games have gone anyway. I'm not a massive one for that. I like watching West Ham. I do watch a few, obviously. If I get paid to work in football as well, so I watch as much as I can, or the ones I have to. But I'm not always a massive one for that. But this season I've been even less so. I know there's been more on, but sometimes I'll just sit and watch this. This might be a good game. And the amount of games I just go, I don't care. What's the point? What's the point of that? Like Leeds, Patrick Bamford's one was almost on par with that earlier season when he pointed for where he wanted the ball to go, and his legs were about 3 yards behind the bloke who was obviously playing him onside, and he got done because the corner of his sleeve of his arm that was pointing where he wanted the ball was like 0.5 millimeter beyond the Aston Villa defender's knee or whatever it was. And it's like, what's the point? And what is the point? Yeah, but look, we've got Mark Halsey on next, and we'll put all of these. Me and Tom actually spoke to him earlier today, so you'll hear that interview next. We'll put all of those salient points to him. So stay with us for Mark Halsey next up. So, lads, decisions to one side. We'll forget about those. We'll speak about those with Mark Halsey, and we'll hear what he's got to say in part 2. But on the pitch, football only chat now. No more refereeing howlers. Did you think we didn't offer too much going forward? I thought Chelsea defended expertly. I was really impressed with them. They looked compact. They looked tight. And they were as good, I thought, as we looked unimaginative and tired. What did you think, Tom, as far as the game went going forward away from those ridiculous decisions?
Yeah, I think considering we lost 5 players, I think defensive solidarity is something we've lost for the last month or so. I know we've won games and we've been brilliant going forward, but it was good to see us look solid defensively. Apart from the Werner goal, we didn't seem to switch off, but I think there's a problem going forward. I think we drastically miss Antonio, and I think it will become ever more evident in these next few games against Burnley, Brighton, West Brom, Southampton. They're going to sit deep, and we're going to need someone to stretch the play in. And Bowen, he's done a sterling job up there. Sorry, he's done very, very well, but he doesn't have a physicality. He can't bully people. He can't do everything that a number 9 should do. He's limited. He can't get it back to goal. He's more about running in behind. And I think we just missed that physical presence up there. And I do feel like there's a bit of burnout. Before we came on air, we were talking about the fact that these players have played a lot of games. If you go through it and you look at Souček, you look at all them, you look at Soufal, you look at Bowen, Fornals, they played a lot of minutes this season with very little rotation. And I'm worried it's catching up with us going forward. Lingard won't score 9 in 10. I will say this on record ever again for the rest of his career. That's just how it is. That's how it is. He'll never score 9 in 10 for the rest of his career. He won't. Like, he's a superb player, and he still contributed on the weekend. Was brilliant, and he's still our top player, and he'll be the one to make a difference. But we can't rely on him doing something every week, and I think it's becoming quite clear now that we're a bit short in those forward areas when we're missing our top talents, and it's a worry for me. It is a worry because we didn't look particularly good that weekend, and we didn't look against Newcastle until we had a firework up our arse. We didn't look particularly good either going forward, so that's a worry. But we've still got firepower there, so fingers crossed that they prove me wrong.
James, I wasn't going to mention it till a bit later on. I thought we'd do a little bit more on the game first, but Tom's alluded to it there, so it seems like a nice time to link across. I just feel, and I don't want to say it because I know that people will get at me on Twitter again, projected negativity, blah, blah, blah. But I just think now the lack of January investment is starting to show. This is the part of the season when those decisions, or in our case, lack of decisions, start to come out, don't they? They start to show because we're running on fumes, and I mean that both the actual players we've got are running on fumes, and we're running on fumes as far as the squad and players we've got available. Players are dropping or have been dropping like flies in recent weeks, and we've been left with a threadbare squad. It's not sustainable to expect to go a full season or even half a season just on a really good starting 11. That's what mid-table to lower mid-table teams do. You know, Crystal Palace, Brighton, all these teams have got a decent starting 11 with some good players, but no subs. That's the difference, isn't it? And do you feel like that? I don't want to be negative, but you've got to call it as it is as well, mate. It's if we'd have invested more in January, we, like Tom's mentioned it about the Newcastle game, we would have been all right then. I'm not saying we would have beaten Chelsea. I'm not saying that at all, but it would at least give ourselves more of a chance at the business end of a season, which could be historic, or it could be, oh yeah, fairly good.
We said it, didn't we, after, was it the beginning of February, after deadline day, when we were kind of hoping that the club would bring someone in?
Yeah, and then that was annoyingly, we started playing well, winning games, so we all I looked a bit silly.
But it was still obvious then, like, because we all knew that Antonio would eventually have to sit out a few games because his hamstring would go again. And we all knew in the back of our minds that either one of Rice or Souček are bound to get injured at some point and miss 1 or 2 games. It was going to happen. And so it's just frustrating that we've now got to this point. We've got ourselves in such a great position, and it could be undone by that lack of activity in January. And some people were praising David Moyes for when he said, I didn't want to waste the club's money on just a backup striker or whatever.
And if you believe that, then you're a flat earther.
Like, it's silly, isn't it? Like, just go out and get someone. Just go out and get someone that
anyone
that can play up front. Should Antonio get, or when Antonio gets injured, and we needed another central midfielder, because as much as Noble's done a great job, we all doubted him when Rice got injured. We all wondered whether he could make a difference given the performances he'd made when he had played previously. But I mean, he's done a good job. But we need someone who can play a very similar role. We need a proper deputy, a proper backup, and it just didn't happen. And now we're sitting there. Okay, 1 or 2 might be back, hopefully for the Burnley game, if not for the game after that. But it's getting a little bit like we can't afford any more injuries, and we're literally, as you said, running on fumes, driving towards probably the biggest achievement in the club's history, and it's just whether we can get over the line or not. And it's beginning to get a bit worrying, to be fair. But it'd be the club and David Moyes who will have, although David Moyes has done a great job, like brilliant job all season, like he'll have questions to answer in the season if we don't make it over the line because of his injuries. And that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, I'm still not quite having that everyone's just taking David Moyes' word as gospel that it was his decision
Yeah.
not to buy him in
Party
January.
line.
Yeah, exactly. Towed the party line, and the club were quite happy for him to take that flack because his stock was high at the time, so fans were more inclined to forgive him than they were the board. I just feel like it's a bit, if you imagine it like a 400-meter race, I feel like we were leading going into the final turn, and we're sort of, as we're coming around the bend, you think, oh, he's going to come out on top. And we're just level as you come out the final bend into that final straight, and all of a sudden the laces have come undone. You can just see you're about to tread on them and trip over and stumble while the rest of them fly past, hurtling at pace. But yeah, look, I got told off for projecting negativity before. Well, I can't get told off now because this is actual negativity, because it is bearing fruit. So I think I managed to keep my mouth shut for a while. Thomas, you put your hand up very politely there. Go on, what have you got to say?
No, I was just going to say I'm with you, Will, and for me,
Yes.
I would like to say, for one, if we don't finish in the top 6, it's a failure. It is a failure. Yes, it's an improvement. I'm saying it's been an unbelievable success. Anything above 8th has been a success this season. But from the position we were in, with a game in hand over Leicester, so Leicester were playing the FA Cup semi-final. We had Newcastle, one of the worst dross teams I've ever seen in the Premier League at that stage, and we had them to play away from home, and we've got a red card in that game to kill us. And then we had a chance to go third, and then we had Chelsea, a team below us, who we could have played and gone for a point. If we don't get this, and I'm not saying top four, forget that, but I'm saying if we now finish outside of the top 6 from Everton and all them, it would be a failure from the position we got ourselves into. It would be an absolute success. We'll look back on the absolute success from what Moyes has done to get us to this position is an unbelievable achievement from everyone associated with the club. That is a fact. So no matter what happens from now to then, but from the position we got ourselves into, I would be very salty about it if we finish outside the top 6, and I wouldn't take it very well, because I don't think many clubs in the world would bottle the position we got ourselves into with Burnley, West Brom, Southampton, Brighton, all those teams left to play, and Newcastle, forget them, all left to play with 8 left, just after beating the team who was 3rd to claw 1 back on them. I do think that a club like us gets these opportunities once every 70 years by the looks of it. And we're willing to throw it away. And I'm saying I'm 7th for me. I'll take it, and I'll be there in wherever it is in the Europa Conference. I want Europa
Get me
League.
to Baku.
You know what I mean? And I just think that there was a chance here to do something class and infiltrate the elite. We spoke to a Burnley fan. They come 7th. Fulham have come 7th. Wolves have come 7th once or twice in the last few years. 7th isn't special. 7th is nothing. Top 6 is something that we moved stadium and moved our whole lives for. And I think we've got to achieve it, the position we got ourselves into. And that's the crux of it. I'm not saying it's a bad season, though.
Do you know what? I agree to, particularly when you look at the fixtures that other teams around us have got. You know, Chelsea have still got to play, I think, Arsenal and Man City. I know Arsenal are nothing this season, but they've still got to play them. Big London derby. I think Leicester, forget Leicester, but like Spurs have still got to play Leicester. Who else is in and around there? Liverpool have still got to play United and someone else. So they've all got really tough fixtures. And I think the only tough fixture on paper that we've got is really Everton at home. And our home record this season, barring Sunday's result, has been almost flawless. So on paper, we should be looking at our fixtures and going, right, we've got to win every one. And if we do, then there's the likelihood is that other teams around us are going to drop points, and there's a chance to even potentially get back into that top 4, but at least remain in that top 6. But the problem we've got is, do we have enough in the squad to win those final 5 games against the opposition that we're coming up against them? That there's beginning to be some doubts just creeping in a little bit as to whether we've got the squad depth and the energy left to really get it over the line.
Look, I'd just like to say, Tom, I wasn't laughing at you there, what you're saying. I totally agree with every single word of it. It just made me giggle because as you were saying it, I realised that this morning, me and Jones both woke up to a completely unprovoked text message from you in the group chat, just saying, sorry, lads, just had to say anything but top 6 this season is a complete failure from the position we're in with 9 to play. I don't think any of us had put anything in the group chat for a couple of days. So it did just make me giggle. It was first I'm rubbing my little eyes this morning. I said, oh, poor Tom had a bee in his bonnet last night. Bless him. No one replied because we all got an early night.
I just had to. For some reason, been plaguing my brain. I just like everyone talks to me on West Ham. It's 15-16 prior season, massive. We spoke to a Burnley fan who had that 2 years ago. We're tin pot. If we can't get to top 6 and infiltrate something, we are tin pot. We've done so much this season. To throw it away with the fixtures we've got will be. I can't sit there and fucking arms with my mates and enjoying drawing some Slavian third team who came third in the Slavian league. I can't enjoy that. I can't.
Just quickly, Tom, whereabouts?
That's going on Twitter, by the way, that clip. That's going on Twitter.
Whereabouts is the Slavian league played?
I don't know who Slavia are, but we'll make them up. I'll play him. I'll take him and I'll be there. And I'll be on Jones's flight and I'll be on that private jet and we'll go out with the West Ham team and have a right laugh. But at the end of the day, I just can't. It's just, I just want to be successful and I want to be infiltrating that top 6 and I want to be doing something worthwhile. And that's what you keep saying, Will, is we left there to be successful. How can you say 7th is successful when a newly promoted Wolves got that and a Burnley squad got that with all the players they've got? It's not. 7th is the best of the rest. We moved to infiltrate the best, and I will not have accepting 7th in a season when no fans are there. The champions have put in the worst title defense ever, basically. Other than the only other season we did half decent when Chelsea came below us and they just won the title. So I just feel like it's a massive opportunity, and it will be a massive opportunity missed if we don't finish in that top 6.
No, I totally agree with you, mate. I totally agree with you. And I'll be honest, I've been a little bit more wary of being too negative after the January stuff, because I did go in pretty hard on the club, and I do still feel the same way now that our inaction in January is going to affect us. Let's be honest. This is the first time I've said this out loud, but if I had a fiver and all I cared about was winning some money on that, I would bet on us finishing 8th.
Yeah.
Everton, who are in 8th, are 3 points behind us with the game in hand. Assume they win that. They've still got Sheffield United to play in, then that runner. They've got some difficult games as well. But there's an easy win against Sheffield United there. So give that one to Everton now. They're the same points as us with a worse goal difference, to be fair to them. But I just feel our inaction in January in the squad we've got is not a reflection on the players at all. I don't feel the ones who go out in the pitch are not trying hard enough at all. And I totally back them every week when they go out. I just think looking at us the last couple of weeks, Newcastle as well, I know we got the red card, but we just struggled. We struggled against Chelsea, and any wins we get now, results, will feel like more of a surprise, which they haven't done at all stages in the season. It'll feel a lot more like, oh, blimey, we've managed to win despite our thin squad or our weakened starting 11. And I don't think that's a good position to be in at this stage of the season. But I don't want us to finish 8th before anyone misconstrues it, and it might be projected negativity. It's not that. I just think purely looking completely rational head on, that's what I think will happen. What I want to happen is that Leicester, Chelsea, both bottle it. We win all of our games till the end of the season, and we finish 3rd. And actually, the teams get Doxon points and we win the Premier League. But look, back to the match quickly. James, Timo Werner was always going to be in, wasn't it?
I mean, we can add into the list the players that didn't score for 7 years and then came up against West Ham and got a goal. I can't think of any other players on the top of my head, but I know there are loads on that list. But from what we're hearing, he was woeful against Real Madrid in the Champions League semi-final. Kind of reverted back to normal after playing against us. But yeah, I mean, I wish I'd put my fiver on him scoring at the weekend. But just a rubbish goal to concede as well.
It was annoying, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was like just my mate, when we were in the pub, my mate missed it and he came back and said, "What was it like?" And the only way I could describe it was like one of those really sweaty FIFA goals.
Precisely.
And then his response was, what cut back from the left to the right?" And I said, "Exactly that, mate. Like it's rubbish to concede." But
somehow squeezed through a load of defenders' legs and went in. Tom, Lingard looking a bit tired. Some reports out today that he was struggling in the build up to the game with the workload on his legs, a bit achy and stuff like that. He's hobbling around a bit, as we've seen from him a few times recently. Could be a doubt for Monday, but fortunate that we've got the long break in between. Again, squad depth, you'd perhaps be able to give him a bit more of a rest. Haven't been able to do that. What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, exactly like we've all said, and I don't want to be negative. I love everyone out there, and I think they're a brilliant set of players. We just don't have our first team out, and Lingard has been forced to play 90 minutes every single week when he's gone from playing 0 Premier League games.
That's the key, isn't it? He's gone from 0 to hero.
Mate, that's it. And like, footballers are humans. You go out and try and run 20 kilometers on your first day as one of us, you're not going to get anywhere. Like, that's what he's been asked to do. He's asked to get, as much as you're fit and you're on a treadmill, it's a different game, and it's the change of direction, it's the pace, it's pressing, and it's the short sprints, and you can't prep for that. And he's struggling. And I think that's just an epitome of what's going on with us. I think Souček's been asked to do too much. Soufal's been asked to do too much this season. We're just struggling for legs. And don't get me wrong, we still got it. And Lingard, fingers crossed, if he is fit, I don't deny that he'll produce the same performances. But we're asking the extraordinary out of him. We're basically asking him to make up for our goals, our strikers and our wingers, and basically score all our goals. That's basically what we're asking from him, and it's caught up with him. And just fingers crossed that he keeps his fitness, because if he's scoring or not, he's a superb player, and it makes a difference to our side. So we just got to pray that he's the one who doesn't get injured between now and the end of the season.
Right, final bit then to kick off this the podcast, or to wrap up the first segment of this podcast. Saeed Benrahma. I wasn't sure whether to do it. We've swerved clear of it the last few weeks because I don't think it was relevant. There's people still bickering about it on Twitter, but it came to the fore again after the Chelsea game. He came on, didn't get given a lot of minutes, didn't do much. The thing that everyone was moaning about, when he gets the ball, everyone's lined up in the box. All it needs was a little dinked one, and it's really difficult for the defending team to deal with. He doesn't. He tries a shot from all of 35 yards, balloons over the crossbar. You know, the remote controls no doubt went onto the floor. Beers got kicked over from everyone watching at home, rightfully furious. He got inevitable pelters after the game. And I've never known anything like it, really, of an issue to be so divisive. I mean, I have American politics, British politics, all of it. But I mean, as far as West Ham football goes, it's just straight down the middle. It's just, there seems to be no one in any camp other than get rid of him as soon as we can, or why isn't he starting every single game for us, the football ingenious wizard? Tom, go to you first.
Yeah, I mean, I'm disappointed with him. I think since the last 2 months, he's been poor. He's been poor the last few. I'm a big fan of him, and I will say we keep him. And I think people will be surprised, and people will 100% eat their words. If he gets the right go, he gets good preseason, and he gets some confidence going and flowing in those veins. He's a seriously talented player. Like, everyone knows that. Everyone knows the ability he has in his locker. You don't have Tony Cottee coming on and saying he's got Pi 8 level abilities, and he watches him every week in, week out for Sky. He's obviously a top player. He said that on our podcast, and I think Benrahma does have that ability to change games. But all season, I will admit, he has not done that, and he has not done that. There's about 2 or 3 times I can point to where he's made a positive difference in influence the result of the game. And I agree, there are better options than him right now. He shouldn't be near the starting 11. He absolutely should not be near the starting 11. Bowen, Fornals, Lingard, Antonio, all them have given a lot more for the club this season and delivered a lot more, and are there. But I think it's a confidence issue. And I think if he gets a run of games and that run of games will have to be luck. Football is luck. He'll have to get an injury and have to get shown a bit of faith by Moyes because he hasn't earned that on the pitch. Until he goes on the pitch, does something off the bench and wins that trust of Moyes, he won't get afforded that unless it's from a break of luck for him. And rightly so, because he's not done that. But there is a top player there. And I hope it comes right for us, because if it's not for us, it'll be for someone else, because he's a superb player technically. And I really can't wait for him to hit those heights with us or without us. But I just pray that he gets it going for us.
Fair enough, mate. Yeah, I mean, maybe that is a chance there'll be people screaming at this podcast when we're talking about not able to give players rest, going Said Ben Rams on the bench. James, you wrap us up. Just final thoughts on that before we hear from Mark Halsey.
I think I agree with a lot of what Tom just said about Ben Rama. I think what that decision he made against Chelsea, where he skied it rather than putting the ball in the box, that's born out of his frustration. Like, he only did that because he's dying. Come on. He's dying to get on the score sheet. It doesn't make it right. Absolutely not. Like, he made the wrong decision, but you can clearly see, and he's been like this for sort of the last 4 or 5 appearances that he's made, that he's desperate to get his first goal for the club, and it's clouding his judgment on the pitch, and it's almost sort of taking over his ability as a footballer, because he's almost got one thing on his mind, and that's right, I need to get a goal, because he knows a goal will build his confidence. A goal will get him in Moyes' good books. A goal might get him a start in the next game. He's been a little bit unlucky in terms of that he's not had a long run of starts. He's not had a long go at it. So yeah, I think I think he's a confidence player. I think we've always known that he's a bit of a confidence player, and I think when he scores his first goal for the club, I think we might begin to see a bit of a different side Ben Rama. Trouble is, he needs the minutes to be able to get that goal and the correct decision making, because on Saturday afternoon it was all wrong.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. Fair enough. Well, look, we won't go into it too much more for the time being. Bigger fish to fry at West Ham at the moment. I don't care who plays on the pitch, as long as we get that European spot, I'll be more than happy. So, lads, more on those decisions. The Fabian Balbuena red card and the Cesar Azpilicueta handball that wasn't, from former Premier League referee Mark Halsey. Next. You are still listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, Tom Edwards and James Jones. I'm delighted to say that joining us for the first time on the We Are West Ham podcast is a former Premier League ref who took charge of top flight games in England across 3 decades. It's a podcast debutant, like I said. It's Mark Halsey. Mark, thanks so much for joining us all the way from sunny Spain. I've read your comments in the Sun newspaper over about the Fabian Balbuena stuff. That's what I want to start with. Tom's got some questions as well about Cesar Azpilicueta. You pulled no punches in your Sun column. It's a great read every time that comes out. It's nice to hear a refreshingly honest perspective from former refs. I really like how the game broadcasters, newspapers have introduced that over the last couple of years. Fabian Balbuena, first of all, just let our listeners know what you made of that before we get into the nitty gritty of it.
Yeah, listen, look, I mean, as soon as I saw the challenge, for me, it was the West Ham defender trying to clear the ball. The ball's there. He's not making a challenge because the ball's there. He's come through. He's cleared the ball, and obviously he's followed through. And he slips a little bit as well. So you look at that, you think, where's he supposed to put his foot once he's that follow through? I know I've heard a couple of ex-players. I think it's Jason Cundy on Talk Sport.
Typical.
Typical. Well, yeah, listen, I have to say, everybody cannot be wrong, can they? I mean, I think you look at 98% of everybody involved in football, that he's not making a challenge, he's clearing the ball. And Chris Kavanagh, he's right there. He's looking straight at it. I don't think he was going to do anything. But what annoyed me was that the VAR, Peter Banks, getting involved, because it's not a clear and obvious error. And we've seen VAR this season being consistent at being inconsistent. And for me, Peter Banks should not have got involved, because that was not a challenge. That wasn't a serious foul play challenge that with excessive force and brutality. And listen,
is that the rule, Mark?
If Chilwell hadn't come across to block him, then his foot wouldn't have caught onto the back of his calf. And I just think it's one of those with certain officials knowing the laws of the game, but not knowing the game of football.
You mentioned there, Mark, the laws of the game. Is that what you just said about his foot being raised in violent contact? What is the law or the wording? Are you aware of?
Listen, obviously the law under Law 12,000 misconduct is a careless challenge is a free kick and nothing else. A reckless challenge is a free kick and a yellow card. And a challenge that endangers a player's safety with excessive force and brutality, whether it's made from the side, the front, the back, 1 or 2 feet, must be sanctioned with a red card. Now, listen, that for me, that didn't meet the criteria of serious foul play. It was just one of those things that happen in football. Like the Southcheck sending off at Fulham. I mean, that was never a sending off, never an act of violent conduct. Yes, he's caught him, but he's trying to get his arm out of the way, from him. And once again, Lee Mason on the VAR should never have got involved. And hence, I think I'm correct in saying that Lee Mason has never done a VAR stint since that incident.
So they do listen sometimes in.
Well, I think so, because there was outcry. I mean, I remember my column. I said if there's any justice in this incident, the FA have to overturn Southcheck red card, and obviously they did. And listen, I think this should be overturned, but you don't know. You don't know who's sitting on that panel. It's a 3-man panel, and it all depends on what way they go, or whether there's been any discussion with PGML over. I mean, I understand that apparently the PGML were happy with the red card, but I do understand that a number of match officials are not happy with the red card, so they obviously didn't feel it was a red card.
Go on, sorry.
No, go on, where you go?
No, what? So I really want to get on to what you said there about at what stage do we have to start talking about fans not enjoying football anymore? Because the lawmakers and the PGMOL, but ultimately the lawmakers have got such a huge responsibility at the moment and on how the game's played and whether fans enjoy it or not. So I do want to get onto that, but just one more on the nitty gritty. You wrote in the Sun after that Chris Kavanagh's got to grow some cojones and stick to his original decision. And, it's not, like you said, it's not just about knowing the laws of the game, VAR, Peter Banks has got involved, etc., etc. What was going through Chris Kavanagh's head, do you think, there? Because he's obviously been called over to the screen. So just talk us through what in his head, because to me, I find you can sometimes tell looking at the refs where when they've looked at the screen or whatever, sometimes they feel a bit apprehensive about going to do what they're about to do. So can you just talk us through what he might have been feeling from when the original challenge happened?
Well, I think perhaps I may have done a bit of disjustice to Chris Kavanagh in that case, because just come to my head then was that, do you remember when he refereed Everton Liverpool? I think it may have been at Goodison Park, where he
was it the Van Dijk one?
Was it the penalty? No, the penalty. The penalty to Calvert-Lewin, was it when was he brought down late in the game?
Right.
And VAR recommended a review because initially he gave the penalty, and VAR is recommended a review because obviously the problem I think we've got as well is that some referees are re-refereeing the game. So Chris Kavanagh went to the monitor, looked at the incident, and stuck with his original decision to give the penalty. Now, obviously, he was called over to look because VAR felt it wasn't a penalty. So I wonder the conversation that went on with him after that with his management to say, what are you doing? What, you know, perhaps they felt it wasn't a penalty. So perhaps he's got that in the back of his mind when he's being called over. Oh, I'm not going to change my decision, you know, again. So perhaps, you know, I think they work under a lot of pressure because, you know, now when they go across to that monitor, something's going to happen. Something is going to happen. Something is going to happen. So I would have liked to see Chris, as I say, be mentally tough, mentally strong, and look at that and know the game, because you can see it straight away. The ball's there. He's cleared the ball. He's followed it through. Chilwell comes in front of him, and then obviously a contact is unavoidable because he's so close to him. So I would just like to have seen him look at that and say, well, do you know what? No, that's not a serious foul play challenge. That is purely accidental. I know accidental is not in the laws of the game. But obviously Peter Banks felt it was a challenge that endangered the player's safety with excessive force. And, you know, I don't sit comfortable with that. I really don't. And as I said, I'd like to hope that that West Ham get this overturned, rescinded, but I'm not sure, because obviously they've already had one rescinded this season, and when you've got two,
you're on a quota, on a quota. Huh? They've all used up their quota already. Yeah.
But well, listen, I listen. I know they don't listen to pundits or especially my comments, because I'm sure they don't like me as I am. But the PGML, that's why I'm not involved in coaching our referees. But listen, I really do think it wasn't a red card challenge. Let's just hope that the 3-man committee look at that and see it not as a red card challenge. But we just don't know. It's one of those where I was 100% right in that Souček would win his appeal. I'm not so sure with this one for West Ham. Yeah. I'd like to think they would, and I'd like to think common sense prevails, because it's clearly not a red card challenge for me. And obviously, a lot of these things are subjective.
So that brings me on perfectly, Mark, to my next point. I know Tom wants to come in about the handball as well, but you mentioned subjective there. I tweeted after the game, or straight after the decision. I'm normally quite good at leaving my phone alone until I've simmered down after a game. But
listen, you're not the only one. I've got a very good friend out here who's a massive West Ham fan, and he's texted me straight away. Surely he's not going to send him up.
Well, and I'm normally good at it. Tom. Anyone who follows Tom on Twitter will know he's the hot-headed one among the two of us. But I just tweeted straight afterwards: Balbuena sent off for kicking the football. What total shambles this sport has turned into. What is the point? And what I find, Mark, and I want to hear from you, whose responsibility is it? I mentioned the lawmakers earlier on, because I've found, and I'm very fortunate to work in football as well as be a lifelong West Ham supporter. I have
so
not enjoyed...
it's you that threw those eggs at me at Upton Park in the kicking run, was it?
I might have been a bit young there. It might have been my dad, but I found not just West Ham, and this is completely, that tweet then is just happened to be watching a West Ham game. I found football this season for me has been far less enjoyable than it's ever been. And I was massively for VAR, because what I used to hate, and one thing I do like about football now with VAR, is the glaring, the obvious decisions that usually led to goals against you. I just thought this whole game's a shambles when something so like a blatant 5-10 yard offside. So I found football less enjoyable this season. I can't be the only one. And to be honest, if I didn't work in it, I'd be inclined to, watch far less of it than I have done. Perhaps not get my season ticket, those sorts of things, because it's just the spectacle is not as enjoyable. So that on the weekend, that is what I find. It's been brilliant hearing from you the technicalities of it all. But ultimately, for the fans at home, they're looking at that going, the bloke has kicked a football away and made contact with someone afterwards, and he's been sent off. What's this sport that we all love turning into? Whose responsibility is it, Mark, to stop that and stop young fans being turned off, and old?
Well, one thing for me, the last week that's proved and shown to me is that the fans are just as important as anybody else involved in football. Look what the fans have done to get, to oust this European Super League. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, absolutely top draw. And that goes to show to me. I've always said it long. The fans are just as important as the players, the coaches, the managers, the clubs themselves. Without fans, the football's, like you say, you look at every game this season, a lot of them have been like pre-season friendlies because the fans lift the players, the fans lift the intensity of the game. And so for me, the fans are just as important as anybody else. And also when you're refereeing a game, because you've got to make sure, when you went to certain grounds, you had to be at the top of your game. Otherwise you would get an earful from the fans, that. But if you look at the IFAB protocol, for me, it's not VAR. It's not VAR.
I totally agree.
It's the personnel that's implementing it in the English Premier League. It's the leadership and direction from the PGMOL management. That's where the problem lies. That's where the problem lies. And we're seeing so many instances where VAR getting involved where they shouldn't get involved. A clear and obvious error or a serious incident missed. That's when they should get involved. The absolute howler. There's many decisions that are subjective, many. And that's when you don't get involved. It's when, the absolute howlers, that's when they get involved. And they're getting involved far too often than they should. And that is because I believe that some of the referees are re-refereeing the games. That's not what they're there for. So I blame the PGMOL and the management for their leadership and direction of our officials. Listen, we've got some very good match officials. We have, but it's about how you manage your dressing room. So the team of referees are just like the team of players. You're managing a dressing room, and some need a kick up the backside, some need an arm round them, some need a little bit of loving. I know what it's like because I've been under this PGMOL management. I know exactly how they work. And they've not got that managing techniques in their armory. That's the problem we've got.
That's quite interesting, actually, the way you put it, that you still need to manage them like a squad. I've never
absolutely, and it's no different. Good coaches turn average players into good players into excellent players, and on international players. Now, in refereeing, it's no different with the coaches. It is no different. But we haven't got our best people helping or coaching our elite guys, and all the way down, looking at progression planning, looking at the young referees that are looking to come through and bring them through. And you can still referee with common sense. You can still referee with a smile on your face. You can laugh with players. You can joke with the players. But when you get that opportunity to stamp your authority on a game, you have to do that. And that comes from the leadership and direction of the management. That's the problem. You've got myself sitting on my backside, not helping with referees. You've got Mark Clattenburg going all over the place, doing things and looking after refereeing in China and looking after referees in Greece. We've got Howard Webb in America doing with the MLS. Now, why? All these guys left the PGMOL. I left the PGMOL. He didn't want me. I asked when I was retiring. I said, "Is there anything I can do here?" Before I went off to do my book, he said, "No, I've got nothing for you." Because it's about that.
This is Mike Riley, is it?
Yeah. Does that fit? That's what it's all about. Does that fit? And it's wrong. Well, it's wrong.
When you say that fit, would you elaborate on that for us, Mark?
Does your face fit?
Oh, sorry. Does that fit? Right, I'm with you. Yeah.
Well, sure. So, but listen, that's the way it is. Listen, we all love football. I've grown up. I've played football. I've supported, the team across London for that's where my family brought up in Shepherd's Bush, East Acton. So, Super Hoops, that's my team. Come on, you ours. But we all love football. We're all here for the good of the game, and you can understand why fans are getting disgruntled now with. Just imagine all these decisions with fans in the stadium. We heard it on Sunday when some of the fans weren't happy with Paul Tierney not cautioning Laporte. But I can see what he was doing because he should have cautioned Reguilon earlier on, Sergio Reguilon early on for a similar tackle. But he gave both players a chance, and I've got no. For me, that's fine. I
was at the game Sunday, the League Cup final, and I thought he was brilliant ref. I thought the whole game.
I thought Paul Tierney refereed the game really well. You know, they're saying Laporte should have been said. Oh, well, so could a Tottenham player be sent off for 2 yellow cards because they were both cautioned in the first half. So and he gave them both a chance in the first half on 2 challenges. What's wrong with that? He was consistent.
Yeah, no, I agree. So Tom, you go in now because I think obviously we've got intriguing to hear Mark's thoughts on the laws and stuff. But you had something to say about the Azpilicueta stuff.
Yeah, Mark, the only other remotely controversial thing on Saturday was the Azpilicueta handball, and it looked like he sort of made a movement towards it with his hand at least. And I know it might have come off his hip, but it's one of those that we saw given last year. We saw given at the start of this season, but it was looked at for 5-10 seconds again. And what was your initial thoughts on that one? Do you think it would have been a harsh one, or do you think that's something VAR should have looked at in deeper detail?
I do. And again, that situation is subjective. My initial reaction was when I first saw it, I didn't think nothing to it, and then when they see it again, you think, But I thought that would have been very, very harsh had that been given as a penalty. I have to say, it's got to be a deliberate movement of the arm towards the ball. Has to be, making yourself bigger, and having your arms in an unnatural position. So, it's the same as looking at the send off in the game, and they looked at it numerous times. How many times did they look at that instant? And listen, you look at when you look at it at VAR, and the referee goes across. You look at it. You look at it one time in slow motion to see the point of contact, and then you should be watching it in real time. And they looked at that numerous of times, absolutely numerous of times. So if you're looking at that many times, it's not a clear and obvious error. You shouldn't be looking at it. You shouldn't be recommending it for a review. So listen, I think the handball law. Listen, we've had so many goals ruled out this season because of that t-shirt line with the hand with the arm now, because you can score with the top of your arm and your armpit, so that comes into play. So that has ruled out so many goals. I mean, it's a nonsense for me. Handball is from the top of the shoulder all the way down to your fingernails. The sooner we bring that back into play, that whole of the arm, forget the t-shirt line, and then we will see a lot more goals scored. And to be honest, I like the new trial that they're going to do out in China, that Arsene Wenger's working with FIFA that if any part of your body's onside, then you're not offside. So I think that would be beneficial for the game. But the sooner we get back to this, the handball, and it will change next season. I mean, we saw Callum Wilson's goal disallowed for Newcastle because it's
heartbreaking.
Listen, there's nothing he can do. He can't get out of the way. But the law says if it comes off his arm accidentally and he puts the ball in the net, he has to be disallowed. That will be the same next season. That won't change. That will not change. Where it will change is if you're in the penalty area, a teammate accidentally handballs it, hits his arm, then falls to Callum Wilson. He puts it in the back of the net. Hang on. He puts it into the back of the net. That will then be allowed.
Brilliant.
What? Ridiculous. It's a farce.
Mark, there was another thing I wanted to ask. Usually when VAR gets pelters from all corners, one of the main suggestions is putting an ex-pro in there or putting someone who used to play the game at the top level as one of the decision makers. What do you think about that? Do you think there's room to bring in ex-pros, or do you think people like yourself and Mark Clattenburg and all the people you mentioned would be better off serving in that role?
Yeah, listen, we were all top referees, weren't we? I think that referees can. I mean, I spent many years training with Bolton Wanderers full time with under Sam Allardyce. I had great, good friends with Kevin Nolan. I still text Kevin now. He wasn't happy on the Saturday, I can assure you. And nor was David, because I've worked with David with BN Sports out in Doha, and I've always got on well with David. So he wasn't best pleased either as well, I can assure you. Listen, I think that, we're looking at the standards of refereeing. Yes, I think since, I think it has been on a decline since I think Mike's come into office when he took over from Keith Hackett. But I still feel we've got really good referees, but it's the way you coach and the way you lead them. I think, and also I've got, for me, with the offsides, and I think we should use the naked eye. If you can't tell after first or second replay, then it's a goal. Just like, don't take away the lines. Just like we don't see the lines in other leagues or in the Champions League or in the MLS. They just use the naked eye on the offsides, and they don't get half the problems we get. And also another thing for me is that you've got active referees and VAR sitting in front of the screen is two totally different professions. And I think, Saturday afternoon, one of the refs is doing VAR, and then he finishes that, and then he's got to drive to wherever he's got to drive in the country and referee on a Sunday. And for me, I think that's too much. So I think you've got your active referees who stay active, and you have a retired pool of top referees doing VAR.
Yeah, and then it gets everyone in the swing of what they're doing, everyone doing the same thing.
Absolutely.
Almost.
Absolutely. And going on to players, I think that, you talk about football players. Yes, they will help with challenges and how players go into challenges, where they go in with the correct leg or they go in with the wrong leg. And I think we see a lot of professional footballers in League One and League Two retire early because obviously, it's just the money's not there as it is in the Championship and in the Premier League. We know that. All right, so I'd like to see the way that they do in cricket. Whereas when professional cricketers retire, they take the exam of the umpiring course and they go straight into second 11 umpiring, and that's where they do their training. And then they get put into the county scene, and then some of them go on to be international umpires. So I would like to see any of those, because it's good. It's not a bad living as a referee. I think the referees now earn more than the guys do in League One and League Two. So,
what would it just roughly, Mark?
Just before I finish,
what's a ballpark? Go on, sorry.
So before I finish, So I think what they should do, if those players that are interested in taking up refereeing, and there won't be many, because I didn't want to do it, and all of a sudden my mate persuaded me. I think they should do the course, pass the exam, and go straight into the National League. And they do their training and their learning refereeing in the National League, and then move their way up.
Yeah,
not start at the right at the bottom refereeing. The dog and duck versus the plough. Do you know what I mean? So you need to accelerate their promotion. I think that you can do that. We may get a few more ex-pros refereeing. But I mean, listen. You look at Michael Oliver and Anthony Taylor. They've reached the elite level of UEFA. They're in the first, the elite category, and you're earning what I reckon they're earning all their games with the Premier League. 200,000 plus. Obviously, with their bonuses and everything, because you get a performance on and off field performance bonus as well. So I think the top guys are earning quite good money. I mean, I think the basics is around about 100,000 now on the Premier League. That's the basic. Plus you get all your expenses on top. Plus you get your match fees on top of that. So it's not a bad little earner to become professional.
No. I like what you're saying now. So I think, because there's often calls, isn't there, from pundits. I always just think, calm down. You're just more looking for more jobs for the boys after the careers for the footballers. I mean, but just one thing, Mark. It's a little bit non-West Ham related, but while I've got you on it, it would be an absolute waste for me not to ask you, because it's a thing I've had in the back of my mind. I was very pro VAR before it came along. As I've mentioned, I was so bored of I felt games were getting ruined by absolute clanger offsides. So I was very for it. The implementation has made it almost impossible to argue for now. What I've always wondered, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, was, and even now, I think what would be wrong with you just have like a tennis style captain or manager's review where each team gets one per half. And you keep it if you get the decision in your favour. So if you appeal it and they say, yeah, you're right, actually, you get to keep it. Or if you don't, then you lose it. And then you only go to VAR on those occasions. So if the captain goes, hang on, that looked miles offside there, and he goes, okay, we'll check it. Yeah, you're right, Mark Noble. So you get to keep your review. Or no, sorry, Mark, he was offside. We were right. So that's your reviews for the rest of the half. You'd have players would be lots more cautious about when they appealed them, which would reduce the use of when VAR comes in. And you'd only have it used on massive clangers in my head. So I just wonder what your thoughts are, because it doesn't seem to get talked about anywhere.
No, listen, I mean, that have to come from the IFAB, and I could never see that happening, to be honest. I mean, you can say that. You say, okay, they have a referral in the 36th minute where they feel it was offside, and then obviously it's proved it wasn't. And so they lose that referral or appeal, we should say. And then in the 76th minute, you're winning 1-0, and there's an absolutely howler, an offside that none of them give, and then they go and score. Then Mark Noble can't, and he thinks, that's miles offside, but then he loses his appeal. He can't appeal because he's already used his appeal up. Now, but that for me, just leave it as it is. Listen, there's nothing wrong with VAR. VAR is perfect. It's the personnel that are using it. Listen, with offsides, we know it's factual. You're either off or you're on, but we've seen so many incidents this season, where goals, in my opinion, goals should have been given for that toenail, that heel. Those are the sorts where take away the lines, use the naked eye, and if you can tell, can't you, in the first replay if someone's a yard or half a yard offside, you can see it straight away. Use those lines. If you can't, like in an MLS, they don't use the lines. Use the naked eye. If you can't tell he's off within the first or second replay, 15 seconds, bang, get on with the game. It's a goal. And I think everybody would accept that in football.
Yeah, maybe. It's just really, it's been frustrating me for all season, really. Just because I think it's used too often as well. But I do see where you're coming from. Mark, it's been absolutely brilliant having you with us. Wonderful for you to join us. We appreciate you giving us your time. Just quickly then, what would you like to see next season if you were in that the seat of authority and your extensive experience was being utilised far more in the professional game than it sounds like it is at the moment? What would you be pushing for and campaigning for to change about football, Premier League football, particularly as we know it?
Well, listen, refereeing is not a science; it's an art. So it's been the same from when football started all the way up to now. So yes, you can referee with common sense, and it's that leadership and direction of the referees and how you want them to referee. That's one thing. I think another thing, we need a few more coaches, and they're working under an evaluation system at the moment. I worked under that, and I don't like it, and I know the match officials don't like it. So that would go, because you need that personal interaction. This evaluation system, it just tells you whether you're right or wrong. It goes for every decision you make, whether it's a throw, corner, goal kick, foul, non-foul, key match decisions, anything. Just gives you, it's a tick box. That's why I think referees gone the other way. But also, I'd put a lot more into the training and education of VAR, because it is upsetting everybody in football. It's upsetting everybody in football. And I would definitely have two separate lists, an active list and a retired list. And give them that leadership and direction and the confidence. And everything we do in life is about confidence. Everything we do is confidence, and it's about, as a referee, going out there with confidence. And there's a lot of referees at the moment don't know which way to go. Yeah. And the other thing is, for me, is that the referees are relying on VAR too much to come and bail them out if they don't get the correct decision. They're not given decisions when if VAR weren't there, they would be given decisions. Carry on making those decisions. Give them the confidence to just make those big decisions. And if it's an absolute howler, then VAR will come in and bail you out. I wished I had VAR when I was refereeing on a couple of occasions, I tell you.
Is it that evaluation system then, by the sounds of what you're saying, it's that takes the ability to have any common sense out? Because if they're just, every decision is just right or wrong per the exact laws of the game, that perhaps, I guess, is why Chris Kavanagh felt, well, that doesn't make for a very good football game or football spectacle, which is ultimately why we're all here. However, I'm going to get if I don't send Balbuena off of that, I'm going to get a downgrading, because technically, per the exact laws of the game, I'm going to get a wrong on my evaluation system, and I don't want that.
Well, that's right, and also because you get that, if you got the guy that's looking at your evaluation system, you've got that right to appeal, but it never changes, because I know, because I've been involved. It was a waste of time appealing on a certain situation. But yeah, I think that does, obviously, if you're getting bad marks from the evaluator, then that drops you down your merit list.
Yeah.
So you're going to do. And listen, it's all. you can still referee with common sense. You can still referee with common sense. It's about going out there, managing the game, managing the players, managing the event. That's what it's about. Yes, you try and referee the game within the confines of the laws of the game, but there are times where you just can't manage. There are times where there are incidents where you just can't manage. And one of those, take the game on Sunday at Wembley. The two with the Tottenham and Sergio and Laporte, those two there. Now, he managed those, and look at the criticism he got from the commentators. Now, why? He's give him a chance. He's told them, next time you do it, I will caution you, and he did. So he was consistent. For me, there's far too many cheap cautions in the game today. Far too many cheap cautions. And that's the problem. That comes from the leadership and direction from the management.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just interesting. I think there's massive pressure, Mark, isn't there? I think on massive pressure this summer on the lawmakers and the PGMOL, perhaps more than there ever has been before. Because I think I'm not the only one, Tom. You're the same, aren't you? Just fed up of it all, really.
Well, let's get it right. The IFAB have met. And the law changes that are coming in for next season have already been discussed. There'll be no more law changes other than what we've discussed, regarding, the handball situation. So that's the one that will change next season. There won't be no more changes, but that the next meeting will be in March next year when they sit down. And so if everybody's unhappy,
pressure on the PGMOL, then
what they've got to do, they've got to listen to the fans. They've got to listen to the fans. They're all praising the fans regarding this Super League. Now let's let the fans have their say on some of the laws of the game.
Yeah, you think so?
Bombard the IFAB with all your suggestions. Especially one for me is the T-shirt line is absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. I mean, half the goals are ruled out this season have been because of the T-shirt line, because you can score with your armpit or the top of your arm.
Absolutely. It's really refreshing.
You're not seeking to gain advantage. All of a sudden, you point to play the ball in that way, and you go and run, and you get it, and you put the ball in the back of the net. Oh, your T-shirt line was offside because he's pointing to what way to put the ball.
Patrick Bamford, that was earlier in the season, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Leeds, that was, yeah. And there's so many of those, Mark, where I just think this isn't the game we all love, and I think that's what really worries people. But look, we're about out of time.
We're just going. We operate VAR differently to other countries. It's as long as you're working within the confines of the IFAB protocol. Like last season, our referees didn't go to the monitor because the PGL management didn't want them going to the monitor. Now, the IFAB protocol is that the referee has to make that final decision. So he should go to the monitor. Now, FIFA stepped in and IFAB stepped in ordering the Premier League that referees have to go to the monitor. That's why our referees are going to the monitor, to make that final decision.
Well, look, the game we love, Tom, I think we're both in agreement on this. The game we love, and all of us love, is being sort of ruined and degraded by several factors, but particularly that one at the moment. Just the enjoyment of watching a game anymore has been taken out of it for me. So let's hope that, if it's a bit of a slower process, that it does get sorted. But look, Mark, it's been absolutely brilliant having you with us. Just about out of time for this section. Former Premier League referee Mark Halsey there joining us for the first time. We do appreciate it, Mark, and we hope to have you on again. Hopefully this time to not discussing such a scandalous decision against West Ham. But it's been brilliant having you with us, and stay with us because we've got the Betway charity bets next. So Mark Halsey there, absolutely brilliant to hear from Mark, lads. Debutant on the show, first time guest for We Are West Ham, former Premier League referee, 13 years experience, living out in Spain now. Tommy scuttled off to the driving range after chatting to us. That is not a bad life whatsoever, is it? But brilliant to hear from Mark there. No wins last week, lads, for the Betway charity bets. Jonesy, you had both teams to score over 2.5 goals. Bowen first goal scorer, so no luck for you there. I had draw under 4.5, Chelsea to score first. And last, no luck for me on that one either. Thomas, you had West Ham to win, goal each half, and Souček to score first. So a bit wide of the mark for us this week, lads, unfortunately. I did think, I think I was probably the closest. Draw under 4.5, Chelsea to score first and last. I did think once they bagged the first one, I thought, oh, you never know. We might still have half a chance here, but not to be, unfortunately. Tom, tell me what you've gone for Burnley Monday night.
Yeah, this week I've gone under 2.5 goals, West Ham to win, 4 nows to score anytime. I think it'll be a cagey affair. I've got to back us from what Chad said as well. This season, just got to back West Ham. And then 4 nows, he's due one. And he only tends to score away from home. So I thought I'd have a little sneak at one before the end of the season, a bit of a wider one.
Fair play, mate. Jonesy?
West Ham win. Jared Bowen, first goal scorer again. I think he's been really, really good up front. He's deputised well for Antonio, so I fancy him to get back on the score sheet. And I got our boy Jesse to either score or assist, either or. I can't expect him to score every weekend, but he's got an assist him as well, and so yeah, either or for him.
Fair play, mate. You like the old Bowen first goal scorer a bit, don't you?
Yeah, he never gets it in when I back him.
Yeah.
I back him now to the end of the season.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. Well, I've gone both teams to score. Craig Dawson to have 1 or more shots on target, and Chris Wood to score any time. Although listening, to everyone saying about Chris Wood, obviously after getting 3 last week, you fear will he manage to keep on going, but he does love a goal against us as well, doesn't he? And I fancy Dawson coming back. He's bound to at least leap up and meet one header at a corner to get 1 shot on targets. Fingers crossed. As always, those odds will go up on our Twitter later in the week, and you can back those bets for real if you like on the Betway website and app. Just go to the pre-built bet selections for the West Ham v Burnley game over there at Betway, and you can back them under the We Are West Ham bets, where you'll see my name, James's name, and Tom's against the bet selections, and you can back them for real if you want to do that. Stay with us because we've got the opposition view. Simon Townley from Turfcast podcast, so let us know whether those bets have got any chance next. You are still listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, Tom Edwards, and James Jones. Delighted to say that moving on for the opposition view is joining us is Simon Townley from the Turfcast podcast, our friends at the Turfcast podcast. Great having these guys on. But Simon, it's your first time. We really appreciate you joining us. An absolutely phenomenal win against Wolves last time out for your boys. I don't think anyone saw that coming. Not that Wolves have been great this season, but it was more the 3-0 up inside the first half and the hat-trick from Super Chris Wood that I think took everyone aback somewhat. You wrapped it up nicely, a perfect 4-0 win. What did you make of it? And surely you're safe now.
Well, you'd like to think so. I think we were safe before, which sounds a bit daft when you're only 6 points above. But it's so easy to look over your shoulder and think, oh, it's only 6 points. But when you're in that bottom 3 and you're looking up at 6 points, it seems a massive difference. So I always felt quite confident that we would stay up anyway. Apologies, guys, about my voice. It's gone all day. I don't know what's happened to it. But yeah, what a performance. I mean, that was not expected by any Burnley fan. I can tell you that categorically. I bet there'd be a rich man who put 4-0 on at the bookies, I'll tell you, because no one would have expected that.
Well, you're 14th now, Simon. And like you said, I mean, that's 9 points you are ahead of Fulham now. We're in 18th. You've got Southampton, Newcastle and Brighton between you. That's a nice little buffer. Although it is still tight on points, you'd hope that those teams beneath you aren't going to get enough. Where did that come from against Wolves then? I know Chris Wood, he's a decent player, and as always happens with these things, he bags a hat-trick and all of a sudden there's talk about where he's going to go at the end of the season, etc. But where did that game come from? You hadn't won since a game against Everton, some pretty iffy results, losing to Newcastle as well the week before. You know, it wasn't one I think that many people saw coming.
No, do you know what though? We have had some iffy results lately. For example, the Newcastle one is a perfect one, but we actually played quite well. It was only the introduction of St. Maximin and Wilson that just turned that game on its head all of a sudden, but it was too late to sort of get it back. So even though the result was horrific, I didn't come away thinking we were poor or anything like that. Southampton game, for example, another one before that, we was 2-0 up and got beat 3-2. So I think we were 2-0 up anyway, but we were winning definitely. And we lost it. And it's just, that's unlike Burnley to be ahead and then lose it. We find it difficult to get ahead, not keep a lead. Do you know what I mean? So the results haven't necessarily reflected the performance. And then the Wolves one was the complete opposite. Everything went our way. If I compare that to the Man United game, the one before, it was 1-1 till 80th minute, 75th minute area. A deflected shot, took it into the net to make it 2-1 and 3-1.
Oh, that was a fluke, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and 3-1 would never have happened if we didn't have to force the issue, because it just stretched the play and it opened up for them. But yeah, the opposite of that was the Wolves game, where everything just fell to place. Every attack, every ball over the top was straight at Chris Wood. He controlled everything. But being pretty honest, a bit truthful, Wolves were horrific. And I think that you'd have been a poor side to get beat against Wolves that day.
Yeah.
Simon, away from the football just for a moment. See, Burnley had a takeover earlier this year.
Yeah.
I was just reading up on it earlier, and how worried are Burnley fans regarding this takeover? Because you've gone from having absolutely zero debt to now you're 90 million quid in debt.
Yeah.
Is that a worry? Because I mean, first of all, it seems pretty sketchy from the outside looking in, but is that a worry? Because Burnley have always been quite well known as a very well-run club, very shrewd with its investments, particularly in the transfer window, and now 90 million quid in debt.
I think everybody's worried about it. There's been a mass sort of social media influx of people saying, you know, what is this? What were these people? Have they even got any money? A lot of questions have been coming out. Alan Pearce himself is on Twitter, and he's quite responsive with these things. And we're not used to any of this. We're quite underground, as you would say, as a club, and well run and well oiled. And now I'm having to learn new things about financial infrastructure of owning a club just to keep up with what's going on. So it is worrying and it is concerning. The way I've sort of educated myself to digest it easier, it seems to be that basically, you know, when you buy a house that's undervalued, so you do it up and then remortgage it to the actual worth, so you've got some money in your bank, but you're in a shitload of debt. That theoretically is what these guys have done. They've bought a club that they think is potentially more valuable and use its own assets against it to release the money back to them. That seems to be the simplest way to digest it, but I might be wrong on that. It is worrying, but it's also kind of exciting, because where were we going to be in 5 years anyway, the way we was running? You know, we've got an aging team. We've got, we've always been underdogs. We're always favourites to go down in someone's books. So I think that if we don't take this risk, we were probably 2 years away from a relegation anyway.
Do you think it adds more? Sorry, Tom. Do you think it just adds that added extra pressure though to Burnley Football Club in terms of having to stay in the Premier League? Because as you said, you know, a lot of people will have Burnley to go down most seasons over the last 4 or 5 years, and Sean Dyson, you know, continues to work wonders, absolutely superb. But then there's pressure now that if you do go down with that amount of debt, like riddled with debt, like
game over, innit? You're bang on, mate. It could be potentially game over. We've seen it happen to our neighbours at Wigan. We've seen it happen to teams like Portsmouth when they've gone down. They've never really sustained it and got it back. So yeah, it is concerning. It is worrying, but I do think that we would have always been a sustainable club. So, like you said, that is the biggest risk factor now. Is it we're going to be sustainable? But however, if you want to achieve anything, we did need an investment. And we do want to take it to that next level. And finishing 7th, I can't remember the year now, 2018, at the end of 2018 season, finishing 7th and getting that taste of Europa, it's just sort of given us a taste for something that we were striving for. Much like yourselves, you know what I mean? You're doing unbelievable this season. You've got yourselves to 4th and you're battling on for it. If you get that and then don't achieve that for 3-4 more years and you're just floating around, you start asking like, could we ever do it again, so to speak?
Yeah.
Simon, that's what I was going to say. I think Burnley get an unfair press sometimes. You came 7th, which is something that we could do this year, and we've got waxed lyrical about. You came 7th when we came 7th under Payet. We got all the attention. You got 0 attention. You came 10th 2 years ago. And Sean Dyche is truly doing an unbelievable job. Is there a worry, and this is no disrespect to you guys, but is there a worry that Sean Dyche will eventually look for greener pastures, or at least somewhere where he's got a new challenge, whether it's a better challenge or not? Who knows? But is there a worry that Sean Dyche may be getting to the end of his tether and thinking that I'm going to find something new now?
Do you know what? It's a great question. It's so well put, really, as well, because I'm sick of hearing other people sort of diminishing it as like, oh, little old Burnley. So I think the way you put it is perfect, because Palace is one job that I've always been concerned about. I know West Ham's been mentioned a few times. I've never been too concerned about West Ham, and it's no disrespect to West Ham, but I also think that the infrastructure of Palace and the longevity and the, your recent managerial longevity hasn't necessarily been there. Whereas I think that Sean, from what he's got now, would he want to risk it? For example, I heard Spurs, the narrative on TalkSport this morning was all about Spurs. Why is he not mentioned for jobs like that at the minute? But like you say, you know what I mean? It's quite a gamble for him personally. He's got such a cushy job at the minute, mate. He could do anything. He could get relegated. He still have a job here. If he goes to you and has a bad thing and the fans are getting on his back, or he goes to Palace, that's the only thing that gives me a bit of confidence we'll keep him. However, I do think that if it was me and myself, he's not from around here, so I think he's from Northampton, played at Watford, etc. So I do think if a Southern Bound club comes in, it would probably tempt him. So yeah, I do think that that's a possibility.
It's a strange one on Sean Dyche, isn't it? I must admit, Simon, if I was a Burnley supporter, and I remember I was guilty of it last season. We had one of your colleagues on. I can't remember who it was now, but we had one of your colleagues on, and I said, I think it was Joe, yeah. And I remember saying there, being Burnley, you seem to just want to be quite happy existing. West Ham fans are a notoriously volatile bunch, and often got delusions of grandeur. I think we're a lot bigger and better than we are, and other clubs look at us and go, up until this season, you're just mediocre points fodder. We can easily pick up 6 points against you. Just stop thinking you're so massive. And I remember saying, what's it like being a Burnley fan? Because where the goal seems to just be to exist. Because us at West Ham find that a little bit, or have found it frustrating. And to be fair, and I was surprised. I think Joe said, yeah, there is a bit of that. You've touched on it with the Europa League stuff. And do you find it frustrating continually getting asked questions? I'm not digging you out, Tom, but ask questions about Dyche, because I hate it about modern football. And it's a bit the same with Declan Rice now. There's almost that inevitability that players or managers are going to go just because they're performing well at a so-called smaller club. Is it frustrating with the Sean Dyche stuff?
It is. It's very frustrating, because you don't want that instability about us when that's what we're kind of known for. So you don't want to start having people rock your own boat when you've done nothing wrong yourselves. So yeah, it does get frustrating in that manner. But to be honest with you, I think it just breeds success, because people are looking at you anyway and saying, well, they're doing well. Why should we not take Tarkovsky's, Dash, Pops? You know what I mean? We are just, it's just we're victims of a success rate at the minute. And are we becoming a feeder club to some descriptions? You remember years ago, Southampton were that kind of club with Liverpool, and they offloaded a lot of players to bigger clubs, as you would say. But Dash doesn't get the credit he deserves. I think if he got a job like at West Ham or Palace or Spurs or something and got given the time, he would build something special somewhere. But he's done it at Burnley with zero money. I think he spent 2 million this summer. And one of them was on Dale Stevens, so I don't even know if you can count that. I don't even remember last time he played. So it's been a miracle. It doesn't bother me necessarily, like I say. I think it means that we're actually doing well if people are talking about us, so it doesn't necessarily bother me. You guys, for example, with Moise, I think that you're probably and hard about it, but there's something can be special about just starting from scratch again and just saying, right, let's get back to basics. Let's play football, long ball if you have to. Do you know what I mean? This continental football doesn't necessarily always work, and it can bring success going back to like 4-4-2s and all that.
I've just interested about the Chris Wood thing, because I've just had a look at his stats. He scored 44 goals in 122 games in the Premier League. And Mikel Antonio scored 43 in 150 games. And we wax lyrical about Antonio and we love him. And he's done a lot of good things. But Chris Wood is one. I just want to know, in sort of the greats of Burnley Football Club, where does he stand? Because those numbers are seriously good. I can't think of anyone scoring that level of goals for West Ham since I've been a fan in the Premier League. And it just interests me that, one, no one's taken him, not to say that they can just bully Burnley, but where do you rank him and how highly do you rate him? Because there's some seriously impressive numbers in the Premier League.
Yeah, do you know what? He's massively underrated, not just by the Premier League, not just by other clubs, but by Burnley fans. Burnley fans get so frustrated with him. I mean, he's possibly one of the, you know how every club has that player that you just get on the back. He's kind of one of them players for us because he's offside so many times. The fans will get on his back. But I've got an interesting stat that I've seen earlier on Twitter, and I've nicked it from, let me just have a look what it says, 5 yards. And it's saying like, most accurate shots in the Premier League for a striker, right? Minimum 30 shots this season. Chris Wood is on 34 shots on target. There's 59%, which is higher than anyone else. Lacazette second, Calvert-Lewin third, Jesse Lingard fourth, Diego Jota, and then Rodriguez. And like you said, no one ever talks about him. But he's been, if he finishes our top goal scorer this season, which is highly likely he's going to be, it's the 4th season in a row he's been the top goal scorer for us. But is he going to be on a Hall of Fame at Burnley Football Club? Probably not. And I couldn't answer that why, because he's actually doing an unbelievable job.
Mm-hmm. Simon, looking ahead to...
He's not English. If he was an English centre forward, will we be raving about him? Would clubs be looking at him more?
Will he go then? Just before James cuts in. Sorry, James. Will he go anywhere, Simon? Can you expect anyone? There's been talk about it, or do you think it's just Burnley's his fit? Sorry, Jonesy.
Absolutely not. No, I think he could go somewhere, mate. I think the fact that he's not English necessarily doesn't tie him to us. You know what I mean? Like, we're quite a local-based team. Sometimes we get a bit of a community spirit around us. So I don't know necessarily if he would have the same ties to the club as others maybe at the club do. So I think if an offer came in, and I don't know how it all works with their agents.
Because we've been linked. Could you see him at us?
To be fair, I could. I genuinely could. I could see him at clubs that are in the top 10 consistently. I know you guys are this season, but I could genuinely see him as a top half Premier League player because his shot accuracy is phenomenal for a club like us. We don't get many shots where they're in my hand as well. So yeah, no, fair play to him. I think he's probably worthy of getting the whispers now.
So I'm looking ahead to Monday. West Ham don't have a great record at Turf Moor. You guys on the back of a huge win. We've lost our last 2. But it would argue there's a lot more at stake for West Ham. But do you think Burnley, perhaps given that you're all but safe, do you think that there might be a little bit of not so much being on the beach, but kind of a little bit more like we've got that big win out of our way now? We can relax a little bit, or can we expect to come up against an even more resilient and strong Burnley as we saw against Wolves?
I think if I was, do you know what, it'd be understandable if we took our foot off the gas a little bit. But I think if you was ever to expect to come against an anything but a well-drilled 100% Burnley side, we'd be naive to think that. Possibly with the pressure off, let's see. I don't know, because it's very rare as a Burnley fan that we are not fighting relegation, or in that one season where we finished 7th. Even this season where Tom mentioned that we finished 10th, it was only the last couple of games it disappeared from us, the Europa. I think Sheffield was above us. And, we were possibly in there until the last game or 2. So it's very rare to see us with the pressure off. But mathematically, mate, we're still not safe anyway. So maybe we will just go into the full hard-hearted talent, and get on with it. But I don't know yet, mate. I'm not 100% on that one.
Well, look, Simon, it's been absolutely brilliant having you with us. Great insight. Just before you go, I will get a score prediction off you, but I hear you actually cut the hair of some of the Burnley players. So I want to hear from you. Who's the best and who's the worst of the Barnets that you have to sort out at Burnley? And I bet you've had some serious business now. Lockdown's up.
Yeah, well, it's been quite busy at the minute, but sorry again about my voice. It's on its way out. Do you know what? I get more credit for Matt Lawton's hair. I probably get more credit for that one because it's more visual. Although after last week's performance at Wolves, my Twitter and Instagram went off because of the Chris Wood haircut. So yeah, I'll probably save them two at the minute.
Oh, good man, good man. Well, if Chris wants any tips on what's life is like at West Ham next time he's in, feel free to hand him our numbers. But look, just before we let you go, then Simon, it's been brilliant having you with us. What's your score prediction? Burnley versus West Ham, Monday night, 8:15 kickoff at Turf Moor.
Do you know what? Because we're at home, I do fancy us. But you're fighting a different fight than us at the minute, and I think yours is a stronger battle. So I don't think it'll be an easy win if we are to win it. I think I'd take a 1-0 now, to be honest with you. I think you'll come out battling.
Fair play, 1-0 from Simon. Tom Edwards, what are you saying?
Yeah, Hart's not saying good things, but I'll go. I think 1-0. I think 1-0 West Ham. I think either way, I'm with him. I think 1-0 either way, and I'll go West Ham.
Okay, Jonesy.
Schwed always scores against us, doesn't he? So
yeah,
I think Burnley will get on a score sheet, but someone's telling me that we're going to bounce back after the 2 defeats. I'm going to say 2-1. It'll be tight. Definitely be tight. 2-1
to West Ham.
Yeah.
All right, 2-1 to West Ham. I'm going to go 1-1. I went 0-0 last week, and I just like being right. No, I just fancy it's one of those. I can just see how us sliding down a bit. It's not going to be an easy game, like you say. Our record there is not phenomenal. We looked a little bit blunt, and I think that lack of January investment starting to catch up with us now. So
he's definitely going to be back.
Exactly. Yeah, I think 1-0.
I think he will be.
Yeah.
Who's that?
That's a worry. Sorry, Declan's going to be back.
Right.
That's a worry for us because you look a different team with him in your side.
Yeah. I mean, you don't know if he's going to be back to full fitness, but I'm going to go 1-0. But look, Simon Townley there from the Turfcast podcast. Been brilliant having you with us, mate. Thanks so much for joining us for the first time. And stay with us because it's Name That Game next. So Simon Townley from the Turfcast podcast there, lads. Brilliant stuff to have Simon on for the first time, and definitely hairdresser to the stars, Tom, as well. He's not only does a load of Burnley players, gets involved with all the Love Island heads as well. Yeah. Very famous indeed. We did say it, Tom. Perhaps you can have a go at yours next time round. Next time you need your Barnet doing and your missus is busy. Name That Game, boys. It's been a while, 3 weeks. We've all had some time off of the podcast, which means the competition had to be put on the back burner for a while, but it is back today. I am the quiz master. I currently sit second with 37 points. James is bottom on 36. Tom miles out in front on 43. For anyone new to the podcast, each week the quiz master, which this week is me, picks a West Ham match from history, collates 7 pieces of information about that game. We read them out one by one, and whichever one of the boys can interrupt and get the next piece of information before it's read out, they get a point for each one they get correct as each bit of information is revealed. So straight into it, lads. Obscure fact / piece of information about this game is that in a week when Americans have been extremely unpopular, for this West Ham game there were 2 of them on the field. So I need the score line from one of you for the next one, if either of you have got it. Do either of you want to have a guess, Tom?
4-0.
4-0 is incorrect. James Jones?
I'm going to go... I think I know what game it is.
Wow.
I'm going to go... Is it 2-1?
James Jones, 2-1. It is absolutely correct. That's 1 point, a huge point for James Jones there. Tom, it throws back to you. I need one opposition goal scorer, please.
Wow, Jonesy, well done if you've got this one. Did you say two Americans playing for West Ham?
I just said there were 2 Americans playing.
Okay.
Up to you to decide whether they were for West Ham or both.
Brian McBride.
Incorrect. Jonesy, an opposition goal scorer, please.
I'm trying to remember who scored in this game. I'm going to say Landon Donovan.
Landon Donovan is incorrect, unfortunately. So no points for the opposition goal scorer. there. Jonesy's still 1-0 up, but the opposition goal scorer was Roque Santa Cruz.
Oh, it's not the game I was thinking.
So, Thomas, West Ham goal scorer, please.
Freddie Sears.
Freddie Sears. That is correct. Thomas Edwards, well played. That makes it 1-1. James Jones, it throws to you for the stadium.
Upton Park.
James Jones makes it 2-1 there. The opponent, please, Tom.
Blackburn.
Blackburn Rovers. Tom Edwards makes it 2-2 as it gets to the decider, which is James Jones to guess first for the season, James, to make a much needed or give you a much needed win and make the scores 3-2. The season, please, James Jones. He's not happy. He is not happy.
Go 10-11.
10-11 is incorrect. Tom Edwards, have you got anything better? Can you do any better to steal
really
victory
think I
from
know
the jaws of defeat? What have you got?
I might know it. 07, 08, because I think I was playing a football tournament at the time Freddie Sears scored.
James Jones does not look happy with that answer whatsoever. But I can tell you, boys, that the season West Ham beat Blackburn 2-1 and Freddie Sears scored on his West Ham debut was 2007. 2008. Tom Edwards is correct and takes the win from nowhere. James Jones, a despondent James Jones, looks absolutely gutted. He needed the win, but top of the table, Tom gets the points in the bag. Tom Edwards goes to 46 points. James Jones up to 38, which puts me bottom of the lead. The leaderboard, on 37 points. James, what happened there? You seem so confident. You roared out into the lead. You got the scoreline, which people hardly ever get, and then just collapse.
I was thinking of play Everton. I was thinking of Jonathan Spector and Nan and Donovan.
Fair play. Brad Friedel, in fact.
Brad
was the,
Friedel.
American for Blackburn Rovers that day.
Yeah.
Well, look, fair play to Tom Edwards, a exciting one. And Name That Game will, of course, be back next week and every week from then until the end of the season. Congrats, but stay with us because we've got Michelle, West Ham women's season ticket holder, to have a look back at the girls' big draw against Everton. And are they safe in the WSL next? All right, I'll do the wrap up. Do you want to skip the fantasy bit? I don't even know what points are or anything. We've got 3 minutes. So that was Name That Game there. You're still listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, Tom Edwards and James Jones. I'm delighted to say that the third We Are West Ham debutant of the evening is joining us. It's Michelle. Michelle's a season ticket holder for the West Ham women. It was a big, big draw against Everton on the weekend. Michelle, surely the girls are safe now. I know you can't say until it's mathematically possible, but 9th in the WSL, 14 points. Birmingham, Aston Villa and Bristol City below them. The girls have played 19. Bristol City have played 20. Are we safe or are we not?
Oh, that is the question. In my head, I think yes. And in my heart, I think yes. Because we are not playing like a team that is struggling and not adapting and not playing together. You know, we're showing real good pieces of play, real heart and desire. We're coming together. We're attacking, although we haven't scored a lot of goals, but we have got that, fighting intent. And I'm quietly confident, but I think it all rests on the game that's coming up against Aston Villa. I think that is crucial for us, absolutely crucial. And if we can get anything from that, then I think we'll be all right. But I don't know. In my head, I say yes. I don't. Oh, who knows?
you sound about as unsure as we are, Michelle. But the game against Everton, Alicia Lehman, who went there on loan earlier in the season, didn't come off the bench. for the Toffees. Stayed 0-0. It's fair to say that Everton were on top. They had 62% possession to our 38, 4 shots on target to our 1. But Ollie Harder's, he's tightened things up at the back, hasn't he? Have you been pleased what you've seen since he come in? Because it was looking a bit rocky at first, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Hawa Sissoko. I'm absolutely a massive fan of hers, and I think she's come in now last, month or so. She's changed our defence. I think she brings out the best in Grace Fisk. She brings out the best in Gilly Flaherty, and I think she has been absolutely pivotal for us, keeping those clean sheets. And I think we've tightened up so much. And as far as I can recall, she's played 4 games now, including a game in the cup, and we've had 4 clean sheets, and I really think it's down to her.
Cheryl, what do you think needs to, providing we stay up, and fingers crossed that we do, with the big TV deal that comes in for next season, what do you think that Ollie Harder needs to do with the squad in the summer before next season in order to ensure that we're not going through this again next season, and that can at least consolidate mid-table. Let's not try and run before we can walk, and then start thinking about pushing. Maybe the top 6, top 7.
I think we need another striker, and I think we need a real good quality striker as well. I think we've been heavily affected by the loss of Leon. I think she can be a game changer for us. She's a quality player. I think when we lost Jane Ross, she scored quite a lot of goals for us. And I think if we can get that balance right between the link-up play with Martha Thomas and Darley, and just that extra bit of, target person, if you like, I think we need a new striker. And if we can score more goals, I think we'll be okay. Yeah. We've missed Leanne badly.
Michelle, looking ahead to the game against Arsenal, obviously away from home, what do you make of that? How do you think we'll fare? Because it's not a nice place to go. It never has been for the last decade. No. What are you expecting from the girls? Because obviously we've kept 4 clean sheets on the bounce now. The fence is looking a lot more solid than it was. What are you looking from for the girls? Is it just get out there with your hands dry at a 2-0 loss, or what is it?
I think so, yeah. We never fare well with Arsenal. I don't think I've ever seen. I think it's such a shame because they are such a good team and they are prolific. They hit you so hard, and little old West Ham can't handle that, I don't think. And we've never fared well against them. So, I don't really want to think about that game too much. And I actually went to the 9-1 at Dagenham, but the exhibition game. It was terrible. It was terrible.
It was horrendous, wasn't it?
Oh, it was terrible. And it was 4. I think we were 4-1 down at half time. It was so bad. But Arsenal as a team is what we should strive to be. They've got every avenue covered, and they've got a prolific striker in Miedema. And I don't know. I want to sweep that one away and concentrate on Villa game.
Well, that's it. You mentioned that there, Michelle. We've got Arsenal on Wednesday night. That is 7:30 kickoff for those of listening who want to watch that. Aston Villa away on Sunday. We've got to get, but that's huge, that game, isn't it? It's still in our hands at the moment. You'd like to think that given the teams below us, it's unlikely that they're all going to scrabble back enough points to overtake the girls at the moment at this stage. But then it's Man City at home in the WSL on the last game of the season for the girls. So let's be honest, unlikely to get any points from Arsenal and Man City. 0-0 draw with Aston Villa in the return fixture just a week ago today. It was obviously that got postponed earlier in the season. What are you expecting from the Villa game, which really is the pivotal one?
Well, you have to take some sort of positive out of it because we played them quite recently, so we would know their game plan. And when we played them not too long ago, they set up for a draw. And it is harsh as it sounds, but they set up for a 0-0. So I think if we can combat that, and I know that Leanne Kiernan's back in training, but just get our shooting boots on and just go at them, just go for them. And I think they're there for the taking. I really do. I think they are there for the taking, and we have to win that game. There's no draw about it. It is a must-win game, and we've been saying that for so long. But this is where it really counts now. And we have to take advantage of them potentially setting up for a draw again, you know. But we have to win that game.
Do you think they're going to do that though, Michelle? Do you think they can afford to set up like that? It doesn't really seem that's the case.
Well, possibly. It depends what happens with them against Birmingham, because that's a local derby for them. That's a massive game for them. Yep. I think if they can get potentially 3 points against Birmingham, then they might slightly relax against us, maybe.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. I think with all the teams down there, us, even Birmingham now, they're in it, Bristol, they're just taking one game at a time, really. So I want us to win. I want us to win there.
Absolutely. Well, fingers crossed we do that and we can get over the line. Michelle, it's been brilliant having you with us for the first time on the We Are West Ham podcast. We hope to have you on again towards the end of the season. So that's it for another week, lads. Brilliant to have Michelle on there for the first time. Brilliant to have Mark Halsey on, former Premier League referee. Wonderful to have Mark. Just want to say thanks to him. He come on and did the interview with us earlier in the day and came on again to give us his reaction to the Balbuena decision of red card being overturned. So massive kudos to Mark out in Spain. Thanks to him for coming on. Thanks as well to Simon Townley from the Turfcast podcast. Lads, final thoughts quickly before we say goodbye. Jones, I'll throw to you first. Devastating defeat on Name That Game earlier on, by the way, mate. I really thought you had it in the bag. Finally back from the so-called dead, but you're back in the game somewhat. You've gone ahead of me in the league table, but as far as the real league table goes with West Ham, give us some final thoughts at the end of the show and what are you saying Europe-wise?
I think we'll get Europe one way or another. It would take one out of a collapse for us to finish outside the top 7. It's just which competition we end up falling into. And if we finish 7th, then the go for confidence, it's qualifiers, which straight away I don't think anyone likes the sound of, given our record of European qualifiers. So if we're going to get Europe, it's got to be straight into the group stage just to avoid that embarrassment. But I do fancy us to get it done. But I find it difficult to make a call on where we'll end up.
Absolutely. Chelsea 1-1 as well, drawing away at Real Madrid in the first leg of that Champions League semi-final. What a result that is for them, by the way. So they've still got that to focus on and that to play for the rest of the season. Tom, what are you saying? Just give us some final thoughts before we sign off.
I know I was a bit negative on today's pod, but we are 5th in the Premier League. We've got the fixtures which fall for us. It's up to us. It's in our hands. And we've absolutely got the playing staff and the manager to get it done. I just pray top 6. I really, really do. I know 7th is all right. I just desperately want top 6 and it's still a possibility. So as much as I was down earlier, I still think we got us in it.
Absolutely, mate. Good stuff. Well, look, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks to all our guests. Do follow us on Twitter at @WeAre_West Ham. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Just scroll down to the link below. Leave us a review, 5 stars, all those nice things. We've got Instagram as well. And you can buy us a beer or support the podcast at buymeacoffee.com/WeAreWestHam. Thanks so much for everyone for listening. Thanks to all our guests tonight. I haven't got anything to say. Just one game at a time. One game at a time, West Ham. And it starts with Burnley on Monday. Thanks for listening, everyone. Up the hammers. And we'll see you next week.